Welcome to Stove Talk. Quite excited because in here is a complete brew kit bar the windshield. We've got stove, some fuel, powdered milk, coffee, spoon and some sugar. So without further ado, let's have a look inside. So we've got my homemade lid, some coffee, some powdered milk, a folding fork, spoon, some sugar, an Esbit stove and some fuel. Perfect if you're out by yourself for stopping for a brew. Okay, so we're going to be looking at, first up, the HPS Esbit Stove, and that's by Doug McCoy, and he does a slightly taller legged version as well. So it's standard preference whether you want the shorter one or the longer one, and it's made from riveted aluminium, which means it's very, very light, and we'll look at how light that is when we come weigh it in a minute or two. We're also going to be looking at the Vargo Triad stove, which is the dual fuel one. It takes meths at the top and Esbit tabs on the bottom. We're then also going to be looking at the Titanium Esbit Stove. Do some weigh-ins. Now, the HPS Esbit Stove, as I said, made from riveted aluminium, is very light, and it's meant to be 0.25 ounces or 7 grams in weight, and we have that at settling in at just under 6 at 5.9 grams. If we look at the slightly taller model, that's weighing at 6.5, so that's light. Let's look at the Vargo Triad. This is the dual fuel, and it's quoted at 28 grams on the site, and that's 21.6. Let's look at the Titanium Esbit Stove, 13 grams, and it's just under 12.7. So they're a bit closer. The others are lighter than, well under the stated weight. This is just under. 3 light stoves. It's the HPS Esbit Stove by Doug McCoy, and I'd like to give a big shout out and a big thank you to Sarah at Freezer Bag Cooking, and her URL is www.trailcooking.com, who sent these to me. It's very kind of her. Right. That's going. Okay, right there you can see the Esbit coming to the end. It's burning. There's a little bit of residue left there. There's definitely some on the bottom of the mug, which we'll wipe clean. Let's have a look at this Titanium Esbit Stove, which we weighed at just under the 13 grams. As you can see, it's got a wider base and be a bit more stable for wider pots because the legs fold out like that. The mug just fits in there, So you can see it's designed for bigger pots. While the Titanium Esbit Stove's boiling away, let's look at the residue left by the Esbit on the HPS stove. You can see the blackening there, and also here. So not the cleanest of fuels. I'm sure that'll wipe clean. If, as I said, the bottom of the mug had some residue on it as well. Okay, let's look at the gunk that was left by this Esbit tablet in this Titanium Esbit stove. You see that? It looks like chip fat grease, or I've been frying bacon or sausages in there. What we have here is the Vargo Triad stove. We've got it flipped so the flat base is up, and that's what we're using for holding the Esbit tab, so I can hold the mug properly, where the legs are straight up instead of going out at an angle. Straight up gives a bit of gap between the flame and the mug. This is probably the most stable of all the three of them, because with the Triad, as you've used one or seen one, you can dig the legs into the ground. But then on the downside, the Triad is the heavier of the three. It's dual fuel, it's meths and Esbit, so that does need to be considered as well. If you want to see what the residue on the bottom of what your pot's going to look like, can you see that? That's the bottom of the mug I've just been using with the Triad. It's very tarry and should come off in the wash, but just bear that in mind. Yeah, solid fuel does leave some shit. Let's enjoy the fruits of our labour then. There's no point boiling all this water and not putting it to good use. Still on the Java juicers. I'm on the original, which is as nice as the rest of the line. I really do like the whole line of 4 flavours they do. And I'll be drinking these on most of the stove talks until my supply runs out. We've got a new segment for the show. Since this is our first proper labelled stove talk, and it's going to be some stove news. Last week in Salt Lake City, Utah, there was the Outdoor Retailer Summer Show, and Primus was showing 2 new stoves there. First up was the Etta Solo, a jet boil clone. It's 2 ounces lighter and will be available next spring, so it's spring 2010. Second one was the Express Spider, which was a compact canister stove, and that was weighing about 7 ounces or 198 grams. If you have any comments to make about what you've seen in the show, or some advice, I've done something wrong, you're going, Darren, that's bollocks, or you can leave a comment on the blog for this video, or you can leave a comment on the YouTube channel for this video, or send me an email through the contact form on whitespider1066.com.